Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. We're here again. Chris always leaves me when we've either played rubbish, we've lost, or both. But you know what? It's all good. We'll be here over the next hour or so to help you with a bit of medicine, hopefully, and let's pick the bones out of that game. Rangers won, Spurs won. Play tonight at Ibrox. We've got three very special guests along with me, Craig Dearman, tonight, to see you through the next hour or so, as I say. First, we've got Gary Maloney back with us. How are you, Gary?
Yeah, thanks, Craig. Not too bad. Yeah, I feel all right. You know, everything's good in life, apart from Tottenham. Everything is hunky-dory, to be honest with you, mate.
Apart from Tottenham, absolutely. And just so you know, we are live on YouTube, X, Facebook, and Twitch. So get involved. Let us know. I know you'll all be in those comments tonight. There is plenty to discuss, as always. We've also got Alli back with us, and even though he has got a Scottish accent, he is not a Rangers fan. Alli is a big Celtic fan, and he's been on the channel a couple of times. How are you, Alli?
I'm good, thank you very much, guys. Yeah, all good at the moment. Happy with life. Not so happy with tonight, but you can't watch them getting beat every week, can you?
Well, we'll get into that in short order. And finally, we got Josh Hughes back with us. Josh, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. Recovering from flu, COVID, whatever it's been this week.
Oh, dear.
And then Tottenham make me feel ill again.
Yeah.
No,
probably give you it.
As you said before, it's medicine, it's therapy. Win, lose or draw, it always helps you move on to the next. So pleasure to be back on the pod.
Excellent. Yeah, it is a bit of medicine. Hopefully we'll make you feel a bit better, Josh. The COVID strain's going around about. It's very, very nasty, isn't it? And certainly Spurs' performances doesn't help you feel any better, do they? First off, a bit of good news. As you know, we're very proud to be the most watched Tottenham fan channel on YouTube throughout 2024. Of course, shortly coming to an end. Hopefully we're going to keep that top spot in 2025. I'm sure it will. Absolutely delighted we've been the number one football podcast in over 9 countries this year, which is astounding. And also good news, and we need your help again, people, you wonderful, wonderful people out there. We are again finalists in the Sports Podcast Award 2025. The category is Best Team Podcast. We need your votes again. We need your votes, if you don't mind, people. Not now, do it after. But all the links, I believe, should be at the top of the stream, and all in Chris's socials, all over social media. So get in there and vote. It takes about a minute to do. Really appreciate your votes. And hopefully, come January, when the votes are counted, we'll start off the new year with a trophy. How good would that be? Because Tottenham are nowhere near giving us one at the moment, are they? But let's get into that game tonight. Before we do, here's a video from the manager.
Lunch, how do you assess that performance tonight?
Look, it's as expected in terms of the context of the game. Tough game, you know, obviously crowd and the atmosphere you got to deal with. Tight first half, I think both sides, not too many clear-cut chances. Then they score straight after half time, and then you know you kind of know you got a mountain to climb after that. Crowd gets behind it, but I thought we worked our way back into the game and you know, scored a good goal, and then you know, big save by Fraser in the end. And I think in terms of our European season, a really important point.
I was going to say that. I mean, Fraser Forster's had to come in, and when called upon tonight, he was excellent. And the subs really made a difference, didn't they? Yeah,
they did. Look, we had to sort of rotate tonight. It's no secret the issues we got at the moment in terms of injuries, and you know, there's guys like Dom and Decky who have played a hell of a lot of football, and we've got to protect them a little bit. But yeah, I thought they made a difference. I thought Lucas Bergvall was excellent when he came on as well, you know, 18-year-old, which is the great thing for us, you know, guys like Archie and Lucas, as 18-year-olds to be getting through, you know, experiences like this is a positive.
Dejan said after the game he just didn't think the Tottenham players had hit a high enough level this evening. I mean, why do you think that is? Do you feel there's a lack of confidence, or is it merely just the situation at the moment? Yeah,
look, I think it's kind of the situation at the moment that we're in. It's fair to say we're in a bit of a struggle, and you know, being down on numbers, the players understand that a lot of them were asking for a lot of repeated efforts, and it takes its toll. But like I said, we hung in there tonight, which is important. The next round of the European games aren't out for a while, which will help us for sure. So, like I said, I think when we look back on it, I think it'll be an important point for us.
Absolutely. And then looking ahead to the weekend, another huge game for you, isn't it? Away from home, and you've got to go again to try and get back to winning ways.
Yeah, that's it. And it's a big week for us this week. Southampton Sunday's a massive game away, and then we've got Carabao Cup quarter-final at home against Man U, then Liverpool. So it's a great week for us to kind of build into. As I said, thankfully tonight everyone got through unscathed, and focus on Sunday now.
Gary, what do you make of Angie's comments there? Anything to say?
Yeah, I think he's just about right. He summed it all up, really, didn't he? I mean, I thought we were poor first half, wasn't good at all first half, and then I was just waiting for when the goal was going to come. I knew we were going to concede. And then I think we really picked it up. I think, look, we'll get into it all, but the substitutions, Forster was amazing. We'll get to that. He did a few saves, especially that one near the end. But look, I mean, we don't want to single players out, but I was saying it literally 10 minutes into the game. You got to get Timo off, and at half time he replaces Timu. We could call him Timu. Actually, that's probably better. Yeah, he takes Timu off and brings on Kulu, and it's just a totally different game. Bit of creativity. And second half, I felt we weren't too bad. Second half, lots of changes were made. I think we're all right, but I do feel, Craig, I don't think we deserved any more than a draw. So, if anything, you could probably say we got away with one there. So, for me, I'm feeling a lot more positive after this draw than what I did with the Roma draw, for obvious reasons, So, for me, I'm fairly happy. It was exactly what I expected, like Rangers are no pushover. I know when these draws come out, I looked at that and Galatasaray, and they were the two games where I thought, these are going to be difficult and they're going to give us massive problems. I knew the fans would be up for it. And I did feel slightly the ref was siding with them, but that is kind of because, they're at home and they got the fans. But there was a couple of the times where some of the players should have been booked, they weren't. And then obviously we'll talk about what's his face who got booked, which was ridiculous. I think that's why the ref didn't give him a second yellow, because the first was never a yellow, But the balance of play, Craig, I would say I'm pretty happy with a 1-1 draw, if I'm honest with you. And I was very happy when we made the substitutions, because I thought we looked a lot better.
Yeah. What about you, Ellie? How did you see the game tonight and Forster's performance? Obviously, he got a bit of treatment from the fans tonight, as you'd expect.
Yeah, he's a good goalkeeper. I think Lionel Messi said that he had the best performance as a goalkeeper he ever saw when he played for Celtic. And he makes some great saves. So I've always rated him. I think he went with the money rather than going and getting first team football. But that's who he is. I mean, I was disappointed, mate. The amount of times Spurs were giving the ball away needlessly, the amount of times they're getting pushed off the ball, and there just didn't seem to have that fight. I thought it was fucking rubbish, mate, to be honest with you. I thought the whole game was disjointed. I thought they never got going. I think when Bergvall and Kulusevski came on, they changed the game, they two alone. That young lad that came on did more in his half that he came on than any of the rest of them on the park. He changed the pace. And when I say to you about playing through the press, look how many times he got on the ball and drove forward, and it opened up the play. Half the players there just don't get it. Their goal, their first goal, the goal they scored, there's guys jogging back to chase the players. You can't be doing that in that style. It's, to me, the whole Bentancur and Basuma last weekend, he cost you that game against Chelsea.
Yeah.
His first one he's jogging back, so they've beat the press that way. The second one he's given away a stupid penalty. These players, unfortunately, he's inherited these players and they cost a lot of money, so he probably has to play them. But there's players at Celtic that could play in that centre midfield better than them, and they're not even worth half, a tenth of the money, some of these players, because it is about being able to run. It's about being able to pass and be able to press, and it's being able to take the ball in tight spaces. I mean, the young lad embarrassed a lot of the big players there tonight, I thought, because you can blame, you can talk about systems and anything you like, but if the players don't, I mean, how many times did they give the ball away? And there wasn't even any pressure on them, really. you know, if you can't do that with the money they're earning, then to be honest with you, your manager's knackered or your team's knackered anyway. I don't normally get excited with football because it's normally Celtic or Scotland I watch, but I've been watching quite a lot of Spurs because of Ange, and I was screaming at the fucking laptop, mate, because it's just, you know, you watch the, if anybody is interested, watch the Celtic Rangers game at the weekend, and that's how you play proper football at that level. Celtic will be in and about them, no problem. The passing, you're not getting the midfield passing the ball to someone away. You know, I don't think I've seen Celtic give that many balls away in 20 games, and that's in Europe as well, against your likes of RB Leipzig, Atalanta, all of those. You know, we're not talking about Scottish football here. I get the differences, but they just don't lose the ball like they do with the Spurs. And if they keep doing that, that's where they're keeping losing goals. Everyone blames the defence. It's not the defence. If you know what I mean, the defence is decent enough. It's just, you keep giving the ball away to the other team, they're going to keep scoring goals.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I was raging.
No, you get a lot of love in the chat already, Ellie, which is not surprising. People do love your insight on this channel. Josh, just before we come to you, just going to quickly talk about one of your favourite players, Josh, Timo Werner. Anybody who hasn't seen Ange's comments or heard what he said, this was Ange on Werner a little while ago. He said he wasn't playing anywhere near the levels he can. When you've got 18-year-olds, it's not acceptable for me. I told him that he's a senior international, a German international. In the moment we're in now, I need everyone to be at least going out there and giving the best that they can. What he produced wasn't acceptable. When I'm asking the younger players to do massive jobs, I expect more from the senior players. Josh, that is pretty damning from Ange on Werner there, isn't it?
Why is it taking him this long to say this? We've all seen this and felt this way for months and months.
Yeah,
and months. Look, before I go into Timo Werner, and I'm going to stick with that.
Yeah, Timo. Yeah, we're calling that now.
Comments, and this is how it's like we bought him off Timo, that cheap, happy website. It really is. I just want to say big up, Alli. I completely agree with everything you said. Hard truths, and that's reality. Celtic will play them off the park at the weekend. And I've seen enough of, you know, someone said it right earlier in the comments that you could have signed the whole Celtic squad for the price of one Spurs player and we'd have had a better performance tonight.
That's a bit harsh.
I actually tend to agree. Do you know what? It's because of one thing, right? One thing when I watched Ange's Celtic compared to Spurs under Ange, it's passion, desire, work rate, willingness to fight for the 50-50s, fight for the loose ball. If you make a mistake, you know, you don't isolate that player, you cover the player, you know, and you work collectively.
100%.
Going forward, going back. And Spurs don't do that. And, you know, I've been thinking long and hard, and I've said consistently, I'm not convinced by Ange Postecoglou yet. But I don't think any coach in the world at any level can coach players to be that bad, right? I don't think that's possible. Impossible. It comes down to players themselves wanting to turn up at the training ground, put the graft in, do the basics. And look, we've got an injury crisis. There's no hiding away from that. The players have been worked very, very hard. We're down to bare bones. We know why that is. It's the same story under a different manager every season. But tonight wasn't about injuries. Tonight was about wanting to win, passion, desire, work rate, fighting for the badge, wearing, you know, having pride in the team that you're playing for, fulfilling the basics of the game, even if you're lacking quality, right? Rangers lacked so much quality tonight. If Rangers were a half-decent side, we'd have lost the game. They had very little quality, bar the goal. So I'll get that out of the way. It was a very good ball from Tavernier. It was a good finish from the lad. Good goal. But in so many other aspects of that game, Rangers lacked quality. Had they had quality, it would have been another really, really, really grim afternoon. But what they did have was those fundamentals, those basics that some players in that team just don't seem to have. Bergvall, I thought, was magnificent. I think he is pushing for a start against Southampton the way he played. And you couldn't argue against him playing against Southampton because the last few times he's come on, he's looking better and better and better.
Yeah.
For me, Kulusevski's the gold standard, right? Kulusevski and Dominic Solanke, and people like to criticize Solanke as well. But both of them are the gold standard for me. Because even if they lack in quality, which fortunately both of them I think rarely do, they have that desire, the work rate. They do that extra bit. They push that extra bit harder. They go into that challenge with a little bit more conviction than other players. You only have to look at how they combined tonight and Bergval's influence when they came on. It was a different team. And it looked like Spurs could even nick the game at one point. You know, and I'm looking at players that sum up everything wrong with where we're at the moment. Yves Bissouma is a great example. And it's like the guy has smoked a load of weed before the game and he's playing high. Everything is too relaxed. It's lethargic. And he's jumping into tackles 2 seconds too late. Everything he's doing is too slow. It's not, you know, it makes no sense. And there are too many passengers in the team at the minute. And Timo Werner's another example. Everything that's wrong with the squad at the minute. So, look, at the end of the day, I think the point is maybe just about a fair result. I think Rangers will feel like they could have won the game, and I would agree. I think they could have won the game. But it's better than a defeat, and I thought it was going to be a defeat tonight, the way that we started the game. But, yeah, totally right. I think Ange is right to call out Werner, but I'd like to see him call out some of the other players. I think this is a real moment where we do have these injuries. The players should have, I said this on the other stream, the players should have been rubbing their hands with glee at the prospect of playing the worst Rangers side I can remember in my lifetime. At a time when they are so poor, and I know they're playing well in Europe, but so poor, as an opportunity to put wrongs to rights, put to bed this terrible form over the last few weeks, and build a bit of momentum going into what is a very, very important game at Southampton. And Southampton will be looking at tonight thinking, as poor as they've been this season, Southampton will fancy themselves to get something if they believe and they can be together and they can just galvanise and have that desire, that work rate, that passion for one game. They could get something against us. So that's how I feel really about the game. It's too many players that don't seem to fit the narrative of what Ange Postecoglou teams are meant to be about, because that Celtic side that under Ange was nothing like this Tottenham team that we're seeing now. And that's why, you know, I think actually I reflected on some of the comments that have annoyed me from Ange in the past, where he kind of talks about not wanting big players or big personalities. He wants players with the right attitude, the right work ethic. I actually think that has been proven right tonight, because Rangers don't have very good players, but they had the right attitude and the right work ethic, and they got a point against us, could have beaten us. So it shows that a lot of it actually is down to that. And I think maybe the players need to be held more accountable. I thought Pedro Porro is another one that had another horrible game as well. And as much as, you know, I think Archie Gray looked shaky at times. I don't want to bash him because he's 18. He's being asked to do a job in a position that we all know he's not naturally, you know, he's not naturally a centre-back. And he once again stepped in, did a job, and I thought he did fine in the end. So, look, we're having to plug a lot of gaps, having to fill a lot of holes. The injuries are a problem, but there's no substitution for having the wrong attitude going into games, being too arrogant going into games. And, you know, this is a chance for players to step up, and you're seeing the ones that are a cut above the rest at the minute. And I think it's becoming very easy for all of us, fans on the chat, to see as well who we'd like to keep in the, you know, going forward, and who we'd like to get rid of at the next opportunity.
Yeah. Well, Kulusevski to TNT Sport, he said we've got to start winning games. We haven't won it in a couple of weeks, so it's time to win on Sunday. Everyone needs to do a little bit more. Just leading on from what you said, Josh, there. It's just not good enough. There's not enough design, not enough passion, really, there, is there? Everyone needs to do a little bit more than we're doing right now. Great support today from the fans, but as I said, we have to win on Sunday. it's a massive week coming up for Spurs, which we'll come on to the games that are still coming thick and fast later on in the podcast. But tonight's result, well, there's the table you can see on screen there. Spurs are still 9th, Rangers still above us on goal difference. So not much has changed there. We did have the opportunity to go above them and into that 8, but we have got the 2 games left, obviously, versus Hoffenheim and Elfsborg. So we'll see how that goes in the new year. Gary, anything else to say before we get into the match incidents? I mean, was there any particular players other than Werner? I know your thoughts on Werner, but as just coming on from what Josh said there, any other players tonight didn't perform? Because for me, Bissouma was pretty poor tonight.
Yeah, Bissouma, Porro. I don't think even Son is on form at the moment. You know, Son, I don't know what's happened to him. He's like, he's a shadow of himself. You know, you just see he's taking one too many touches, and you know, I think he was played probably a bit out of position. It's not his favourite position where he was and stuff, but he's not making an impact on games and stuff, Craig. You know, but for me, Bissouma, like I said to you, you know, with the Chelsea game, Bissouma and Sarr in that game. I mean, even a 10-year-old on a football pitch would not do those tackles. That was ridiculous. And Bissouma again tonight was poor. Porro was poor. Timu, you know, we spoke about him since day one. And just for me, I'm very, very underwhelmed with Son. And I'm looking at it now and I'm thinking, is that it for him? Because it's not just been the odd game here and there, Craig. You know, it's been going on for quite a while. I've been on many, many podcasts. Right back when I was saying, you know, I remember I got bashed for saying, I don't really think he should be captain this. But now a lot of people are kind of going over that side now saying, yeah, actually, I don't think he should be captain. And yeah, actually, Son isn't playing great. But it was sort of a player you couldn't really bring up, you know, but we have to now, you know, because it's an issue. It is, you know, look, we know with Son, he gives his all. We know that, right? He gives work rate. He tries. I get that. He does a lot more in trying in comparison to what other players do. But he's not making much of an impact, you know, and it's been in a few games. And, you know, Josh touched on Southampton on Sunday. Look, that's going to be a very, very difficult game. And let me tell you, them sort of teams, they'll sit deep, low block. And I would not be surprised if we lost to Southampton, you know. It just frustrates me because we can go up to Manchester and throw 4 past City, 3 past United. We can spank Villa. We can spank West Ham. So we know there or thereabouts we've had similar teams. So the players can do it. We know they can up their game and play some good football. I know we've rode our luck in some of those games. You know, I know the City game, we spanked them, but I know Haaland had a few chances early on and stuff. Maybe things could have been different, but it's just stupid decision making. Taking too long on the ball, and you know, Alli touched on it. That Chelsea game, I don't care what anyone says. You take them 2 stupid penalties out of it, we probably get a draw if not win it. And they're just unavoidable, basic footballing things. So it's a tough one. But for me, I'm really starting to. I'm not angry or frustrated with Son like I am with Timu and Porro and Bissouma, but I am just starting to think we probably need to drop Son and maybe bring him on for the last 20 minutes or so in games, because I just don't think he's got it anymore, if I'm honest with you, mate. And look, I know I'll get bashed in the comments, but it's just my opinion. It's how I'm feeling. It's what I'm seeing game to game, whether I'm there or whether I'm watching it on the TV. You know, it's just how it is for me. So
I think it's hard. I think it's hard for both. I think it's hard for. I know everyone's going to bash Werner here. And if your right back and left back aren't doing their jobs in Andrew's style, then it's very hard for these wingers then, because they should be coming inside and or they should be going outside, sorry, and the defenders should be coming inside and playing more of a central role. I don't see your 2 left and right backs doing that at all. They just seem like, not being funny about it, like headless chickens. And that's a concern for me, because I think there's a player in Werner, but he's good at running on goal and banging goals, and he's used to the kind of style. So I'll give you an example of Maddison, for instance. You look at the amount of times Maddison gets that ball and then he turns into trouble. You know, Lucas came on and did the job that Maddison should be doing every game. If you know what I mean, that should be his role, coming in, taking the ball, you know, beating the press, getting through players. You know, if he can't do that, then I don't really see what his job is in the team. You know, and every time he got the ball, he was coming out to the right with Son. Son's got 3 players on him, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. So I get what you're saying.
Chelsea game, though, isn't it? He was dropped for that game because of that.
Yeah, and it's the same with like Son. Like if he's he likes to run on. He's missing Harry Kane, I get it. And when Solanke came on, he got more into the game. So, you know, not having a striker, but you got to remember, Rangers didn't have a striker tonight. Igamani's not a striker. The two best players for the last 4 weeks couldn't play in Europe because they weren't in the European squad. And that was Ioannis Hagi, Georgie Hagi's son, and what's the other boy, Danilo, the Brazilian guy. You know, and they're decent players, but Rangers surprised me tonight, and Rangers are good at home in Europe. So I didn't expect it to be an easy game, but I expected a bit more from the fucking basics, to be honest with you. There was so much wrong with some of the play. I just don't get it. And you saw the difference when people came on and they wanted to go at people and they moved the ball quickly. I mean, the thing that bothered me with Werner is right at the start, he got out on the wing. It was only the first 5 minutes. And he took a touch instead of crossing the ball. You know, just cross the ball, mate, because that's the movement you need. You can't be letting them get back. You know, that little difference is the difference between a goal and 4 of them being able to stop it, you know. So to me, there was just too many lazy passes, lazy pressing. You know, if you don't press the ball right, then you're just going to keep getting beat. You know, and he's not got the players. And I would criticise for the fact that he knows he doesn't have the players, and yet he continues to try and stick with this. He hasn't changed it up. And I've never ever said I thought Ange should do that. I always said, no, his style, it does work. He does need to be a bit more conservative in certain things, but defending becomes easy because you've got good defenders, you know, especially when Van de Ven plays. So defending's pretty easy if you're pressing and you're going forward. They've not got the ball and they can't do much with it. But your players can't seem to keep the ball. It's bouncing off them. It's all bobbling about. You know, Rangers have got a nice pitch. It's not like that was a pitch issue. You could understand it then, but you know, there wasn't swirling wind or rain or anything like that you might expect for all these problems. To me, there's too many passengers in that team, and it's not just Timo Werner. I think he's got a player in him, but I do think the likes of Maddison and people like that, they're the big problem because they slow the game down. You know, just stop. I mean, he's taking 5 touches when he can take 1. You know, I just don't get it. And I've watched him quite a bit, and every time I've watched him, I see him slowing the play down. And I just feel that isn't the style of play he's been asked to play. And that's not a manager thing. These players need to take responsibility for some of these results because, you know, you can see what Spurs can do when they play the style that they're supposed to play. When they turn up onto the pitch and they don't play it, then what are you left with? Who's at fault? You know, you've just mentioned all the teams they've beat, and by good scores as well. You know, they've got it in them. So that's them not turning up to the other games. So to me, definitely. I will defend Ange with that bit. And if you look at for the last 20 years, you know, Spurs keep changing managers. They're going to have to stick with this guy and get to a certain level. I mean, it takes you 3-4 years of a contract to get rid of some of these players. If they're not performing at Spurs, nobody's going to buy them.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the problem, isn't it? And that is it. The players that are just not going to. But you touched on it there, Alli, our results. I mean, look, I'm just going to put this on screen, and that's not ideal, but you can see that's our last. What's that? 7-8 results there. So it's so hit and miss, Alli. I'm sure you followed our results this season, but obviously Galatasaray we lost. Then we lost to Ipswich. We beat Manchester City away, which was an unbelievable performance. And then we drew with Roma, drew with Fulham, lost to Bournemouth, lost to Chelsea, and obviously tonight. So that's one win in, what's that, 7 or 8 games. So obviously the inconsistency. A few people have said, and I've said it, the only thing consistent about Tottenham is the inconsistency. Yeah. So, Alli, what is different in this Spurs team to the Celtic team? I know you said you got Callum McGregor in there, which we've discussed over the phone in the week, that can play that number 6 role that I know Josh has mentioned, that Gary's mentioned, that I've mentioned, that quite a few have mentioned. Dedicated number 6 who knows the role, knows the system, and is quite comfortable. Bentancur can do it, but what are we missing? Is it just that, or is there more to it? Is there more problems, do you think?
Yeah, I think that the press needs to be pressed at the right time, you know, and it needs to be everyone doing it. And there's too many players in that team, I think, that are rich superstars that play for themselves. That's what it looks like on the pitch. When you watch that Spurs team, you look at them all trying to do individual things. Archie Gray went striding up, past the ball, man. You know, and he tried to take that extra player. How many times did you see a Spurs player tonight try and take an extra player and lose the ball? Happening all the time. And that's them trying to play their style of football, not how you're supposed to play Andrew's style of football. You know, Andrew's style of football is about getting the ball out and passing. Your wingers should be scoring loads of goals. At Celtic, we had 2 guys over 15 goals each. You know, and this, it should benefit a winger. And that, you look at Man City, look at how many goals their wingers score. Because it's designed for them to score. The striker isn't the big central point. Whereas he's had to bring in Solanke because the wingers aren't doing their job. The left and right back's not doing their job, and you don't have a number 6. So I don't know where you go from there, mate. I didn't think it was that bad. And then I watched tonight. And I could give you a load of reasons, but to me it looks like the players just want to play for themselves and not the, as you say, the badge and everything else that goes with it. It doesn't look like they can be taught the system because they don't want to. They'll be speaking to their agents and saying, I don't like this. I have to run harder. I have to do more. You know, and some of them are just uncoachable for this level. And that's maybe why he's saying he's bringing in these young lads, because he's probably better off because they listen to him and they want to put that effort into each game. I'd rather have someone putting the effort in than someone just taking a wage and disrupting the whole fucking process of the game. Excuse my French, but it kind of angered me tonight because a load of them, and especially Bentancur and Bissouma, you know, if they were my players, I don't think I'd play them again.
Try watching
they just don't look interested.
Josh, just coming on to what Ali said about Bissouma, and I know we've touched on it. Is it getting to the point now with Bissouma? I know we're light on numbers, right? But he's not the Bissouma we thought we were getting from Brighton, is he?
Can I just firstly say, because I made a comment about Bissouma that has upset a couple of people in the comments, and I just want to clarify: in no way was it meant with any sort of motivation or offence. You know, when we talk about players, we disagree about opinions.
Yeah,
it was trying to describe how he's playing with a visual description, right? In no way did I mean any offence by it, so I want to apologise for that particular comment, because I'm not in the business of trying to offend people at all. Even if you agree with me, disagree with me, that's
you basically said it because it's like he's on the pitch half asleep.
That was the point,
yes.
And I didn't articulate it perhaps in the best way. I tried to use it
I got it
in an example that was relatable to me.
Yes.
I did that at university once. I had a bit too much of a smoke before I played a game, and
you could have said he'd had half a dozen Zopiclone tablets or something,
yeah,
but you chose to say we.
Yeah, and because it's an example I personally have had, it was no way meant in an offensive way. So I want to apologise for that, because that's not what I'm in the business of doing. We've not got the same Bissouma from Brighton. I don't know why that is. I mean, there are times where I've watched him and I think brilliant. And actually, when I see Bissouma going forward, and when he's playing more in an attacking role, we see a much better side to him. You know, he finishes well from the edge of the box. But unfortunately, I think he's part of a wider problem of players that I think Alli once again got it spot on, which was players playing for themselves. I think he is one that I would probably put in that category.
Yeah.
But we've got too many midfielders at this club, I feel, where you don't know what their best position in the midfield is. You need them to do a job, and they're not quite good enough at anything. They're not an 8. They're not a, out and out attacking midfielder. They're not a defensive midfielder. They're sort of a box to box, but not kind of a bit of anything. They don't really fit in any quantifiable position. They're just sort of in that midfield. They disrupt play a little bit. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're terrible. But unfortunately, the ones that are playing terrible consistently are the ones that we have to call out. And Bissouma's one of them. He's not good enough. I actually thought Bentancur, I feel for him, because I thought in the first half, he was actually one of our best players. He was one of the few players that actually was turning on the ball. His touch was okay. He just seemed a little bit slow. And I think the fact that he's only able to play in these European matches because of the suspension probably doesn't help with just ticking that over and that kind of game sharpness. I think midfield's a big issue for Spurs, because often that's the big problem we have is that's meant to be the thing that connects the defence from the attack. The midfield are offering nothing, which is why I think we're seeing situations like Gray trying to take on too many players, because he doesn't trust the midfielders to turn and do anything useful with the ball. Because when the ball comes to the midfielders, they're far too slow. They're not turning. They're not scanning and turning and then playing a progressive forward pass. Bergvall did that. Kulusevski does that when he's playing in that midfield. Other players weren't doing that. It was take a poor first touch, panic on the ball, take another touch, try and turn into a man, not aware who's over your shoulder, end up, if you're lucky, playing it back to the defence and putting them under pressure, or the goalkeeper, or losing the ball. And that's simply not good enough at this level. So, for me, I feel like we really, really missed out on Amadou Onana in the summer. He was one that I really, really wanted. Someone which is not just, a clear defined role, a proper holding midfielder, an anchor, but he's like 6'4", big presence, aerial threat from set pieces, grafter. Sometimes, in fact, you know what? I think the comparison that I always like to try and make, and maybe it's a stupid comparison, so tell me in the comments if you think it is, but I like to try and compare as many people to Kante as possible. Kante was the top, right? But you want a midfielder, if they're not as good as Kante, still has that desired effect, which is they almost feel like two players on the pitch at once. Everywhere you look, they're covering ground. They're there, they're disrupting, they're always there, making that challenge, making that pass. And we've not got many players that can do anything close to that. So, yeah, I think midfield's a big, big concern for me. And that is actually a lot of the source of our problems. We're giving the ball away in the middle of the park. The defence are out of position because, as we know with this system, the fullbacks push incredibly high and they invert. And when that ball doesn't come quickly enough, suddenly we're on the break. And it created a situation today where it felt like every time Rangers had the ball, they could score, bar their lack of quality. But when Spurs had the ball and we were on the attack, it didn't look like we could create anything until Bergvall and Kulusevski and Solanke came on. So, yeah, I think that's really it. And when you look at actually that first 10 games under Ange Postecoglou, where we had that sort of new manager bounce, whatever you want to call it, our midfield was one of the most impressive things about that side. I thought that was the thing that really was game-changing for us, was that midfield three. And correct me if I'm wrong, so it was Bissouma, Maddison, and who was the third? Was it Sarr?
Sarr must have been, yeah.
Yeah. No, it was Bentancur. No, because Bentancur hadn't come back. It was Sarr, wasn't it?
No, Sarr, yeah.
It was Sarr. They were absolutely incredible. I mean, they bullied midfield.
Look at them now, though.
Midfields. And this is exactly the point. I think, how many times do you watch Spurs this season and actually we lose the midfield battle? I thought against Chelsea we lost the midfield battle. Against Ipswich I thought we lost the midfield battle as well. In a lot of these games, that's what seems to be happening, is whoever controls the middle of that park, if you can control the middle of the park against Spurs, you've got a great chance of beating us. And the Rangers lads today were brilliant. They disrupted. They won their challenges. I think a lot of the time they were unforced errors, or the press forced Spurs players into errors as well. But when they needed to be there and they needed to disrupt, they needed to get stuck in. They got stuck in and they won those duels. That has to be down to the midfielders not being sharp enough, not being good enough.
Yeah.
So
if you look at the teams that Spurs lose against just now, it's the teams that are bullying them in midfield, and they're being bullied. They were bullied tonight, off the ball, pushing. The passing was good enough.
This is what's frustrating about the team. You talk about like the little, all right, no disrespect to Ipswich, and Brighton and Bournemouth and teams like that, but like we can get schooled by them, but then we can go up to Manchester and spank both of them. We can give West Ham a good spanking. Like Villa, we embarrass. Like these players can do it. We know they can do it. This is a frustrating thing about Tottenham. Like when I travelled up to Bournemouth the other day, I don't know what Tottenham's going to turn up. And really, in that Bournemouth game, we should have probably lost 3 or 4-0. But that City game, we probably should have won 5 or 6-0. Do try and make it make sense, because it doesn't make sense to me. It has to be a mentality thing with the players, because it's the same players, the same team. So how's that making sense? How can we be bullied and embarrassed at home to Ipswich, but go up to City and make them look like third league? It doesn't make sense to me. Stupid.
Look, I think that Bournemouth are decent at home, you've got to remember as well, and so are Fulham.
Oh, yeah, take nothing away from them, but City are decent at home. Do you know, Villa are a decent team. You know, West Ham are a difficult side. This is why it don't make sense to me, Ali. You know, I watch Tottenham home and away, on the TV, whatever. And the thing with Tottenham Hotspur is you do not know what team's going to turn up. The only game I was certain on, and Craig will back me up and Josh, was I was going up to the City, up to Etihad, and spanking them, because that's what Tottenham do. But if they could do that, and they can spank, you know, Villa, the West Hams, and the Man Uniteds, why can they not do it to Ipswich that hadn't won a game all season? Or Crystal Palace that hadn't won a game all season? It's the same players, the same team. What is changing in those games against Man United, Man City, West Ham, Villa, to when we play Ipswich and Palace? Is that is that the players? Are they not up for it because it's not a big game? I don't know. It's weird.
I don't know the size of the pitches, but I know Ibrox, for instance, is a bit tighter, for instance, than Hampden and Celtic Park. I don't know if maybe the pitches they're going to with the smaller clubs are a bit smaller.
Maybe.
And Spurs are struggling to make the space because they're not running enough.
What I give
could be a point,
what
but
I
then
give
we
for the
lost at home
small
to
and tight
Ipswich.
pitch at White Hart Lane. What I give small and tight pitch at White Hart Lane. It didn't affect any of those players under Poch, did it? When we had a really small pitch at White Hart Lane
And
we were spreading it about like no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it didn't
This is
affect
why,
us last
I
season
mean-
at the start of the season when we were going to these teams and we were getting results that, I mean, it's just, I don't understand. I
block,
see the
yeah.
point about the pitch, but I think it's the low block thing. We just have no idea.
Yeah,
And
low block. I've said that. Yeah.
I don't know if it's the system. I don't know if, you know, and I think that's part of play. I mean, how many times there were times where Udogie, for example, got the ball on the overlap up by the corner flag. He had no options to pass to. There was no one there supporting him. There was no attacking player there. There was one player in the box surrounded by five. What are you meant to do? We're attacking in a way where our best option, more often than not, unless we counter, and capitalize on a mistake, our best option is to win a corner.
Beating the press is just a different form of a counter attack, though. You've got to do it fast. If you don't do it fast, then everything you do doesn't matter because there's too many people behind the ball. So
it is because we talk all the time, Craig, and like I was as confident as beating City away as what I was we were going to lose at Ipswich at home. But how can that be, Craig? What is it that this Tottenham team does these things? It's bizarre.
The only answer I've got for you, Gary, is it's Tottenham, and I think there is truth in it that we've always struggled for as long as I can remember against low block teams. We struggle to break them down. And possession means nothing if you don't do anything with it. But that's the thing for me. And what I will say, we're nearly 45 minutes into this podcast, and we haven't even discussed the game match points. So let's get going to that because it is getting quite late. I said an hour
was wishful thinking.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah. Well, look, funnily enough, it's one of them sort of games where you can kind of go through it fairly quickly. As we all know, Rangers won, Tottenham won. Goals from Dearman, I think that's how you pronounce it, and Kulusevski. I have to say, what a fabulous assist from Tavernier. Unbelievable. The match stats here. Rangers 41% of possession to Spurs 58. Shots, Rangers 15 to Spurs 12. Shots on target, 6 for Rangers, 3 for Tottenham. Touches in the box, Rangers 23, Spurs 24, so fairly even on that. Goalkeeper saves, Butler made 3, Forster made 5. Fouls, 9 to Rangers, 9 to Tottenham, and 7 corners apiece. So, Gary, the lineup. Let's come on to the lineup. 45 minutes in, we haven't even discussed this. Forster, Porro, and made 5 changes, in fact, to the team that started the weekend against Chelsea. Dragusin and Gray came into the centre-back partnership, as we know, replacing Van der Ven and Romero. In midfield, Bentancur and Maddison in for Papsar and Kulusevski. And, of course, Timo Werner, who we all know, came into the attacking place of Solanke. Skipper was Heung-min Son. he was the team. So the team in full was Forster, Porro, Gray, Dragushin, Udogi, Bentancur, Bissouma, Johnson, Madison, Werner, and Captain Son. The subs were Austin, Whiteman, Dorrington, Hardy, Bergvall, Sarr, Elise, Kulusevski, Williams, Barnett, Lancashire, and Solanke. Gary, any surprises for you in that lineup, or was it pretty much
not really?
what you
Look,
was?
You know, it's where we are now. Look, we've spoke about it. We've got injuries. We've got players out. We've got a game every 3 days. You've got to rotate. Nothing major. I looked at that and I thought, okay, maybe Werner may not have started. Kulu possibly could have started the game. But other than that, I wasn't really surprised. No, I wasn't surprised in the slightest, if I'm honest. And it'll be a very different team on Sunday again, you know. But he needs to rotate. And I think some fans forget that. I know they get frustrated, you know. Why isn't, you know, Solanke starting? Why isn't, you know, Kulu and so forth? But you have to kind of manage the players. And as we've seen at the moment, I mean, look, whether it's the games or it's the training facilities or what the hell's going on, our players just seem to be getting injured more than ever. So rotation is more important now than I think it's ever been, Craig. So for me, no surprises there at all, no.
Ali, should that team have been enough to beat Rangers, in your opinion? I know you don't watch us all the time, but you've watched enough of us to know that you know what our players are capable of, and you obviously watch Rangers a lot. Should we have beaten Rangers tonight with that team?
You've got to get the fact that it's at Ibrox, Europe. They play well, the fans. It's like an extra man. I think I'm going to make this sound worse for you, but Rangers pulled out 5 of their guys that won 6-0 against Kilmarnock, and they've been playing well. But you've got to remember they've got a cup final against us on Sunday. So Ange possibly picked his team based on knowing that was probably going to happen as well, and expecting that team to be good enough. And yeah, I think the team should have been good enough. You've got the ability there. Like you just mentioned, the guys that are not really stepping up to the mark just now, and a young lad comes in and does it. So they should have beat Rangers, but then a lot of teams have come to Ibrox and thought they should beat them and went away with nothing. Rangers are more of your, I suppose, when you talk about Kante, they're more the Chelsea style of defensive football and counter-attacking. Celtic are always about attacking. You guys are always about attacking. So I think that the disappointing thing is that Spurs just didn't show up, or their main players didn't, and they're going to have to start stepping up, because I understand they're playing a lot of games, but Cal McGregor plays 50, 60 games a season, and he turns up every week. You know, and that's the level you've got to get to. You know, you look at, I can give you an example of, it's not just you that's got this problem in midfield, and it's pace. And that's, you look at Man United's problems just now. They've got great players in that middle of that park, but they know they're going to need to bring in players that can run, because that's what you have to do in there. You know, and if you don't have players that are going to run and work in a press, then the whole system falls down. So Ange will make decisions based on long term for Spurs. He'll not care about his job. And he said that on telly himself. So he'll look at, right, this is what we want to be as a team, and this is what we need to achieve. Now, ideally, I thought he'd have got there quicker because of the massive difference he made to Celtic over a season. You know, as I said before, you know, he pulled back over 20 points on Rangers and won the league. So, yeah, I just think there's a major problem there just now. And I think a lot of it's down to the players. You know, if they don't want to run, then what else can you do? You know, and it's the same with Man United. I mean, people have been talking about Man United. They've got the same problems. You know, it's gone on so long at Man United where a lot of the players, you know, I watch Rashford sometimes, how great a player he is. But look how disinterested he is in tracking back and things like that. You know, there's not a player in the Celtic team doesn't track back. It starts at the front. You know, Solanke tracks back well. You know, so an example is that he actually buys into that system, so it works. You know, so I don't understand why others don't. You know, you're at a massive club. You're in the best league in the world. You've got an opportunity there to play lovely football and be loved and be legends in a certain way. And it comes down to winners, mate. And Kulusevski's one. Solanke seems to be one. This young lad that's coming in, I don't know what he's done at youth level, but he seems to have that mentality where, right, get stuck in, you know, and he rolls his sleeves up, and that's what you need. And you've not got it. It's players need to move out that don't want to come up to that standard, because that's got to be the minimum requirement for a player at your team. You know, and as fans, I feel sorry for what you have to go through if that's what you watch every week, because I'd be raging.
We do, yeah, pretty much
More
is
than once
at the
a week.
moment. Yeah, it is pretty horrific at points, Ali. Look, I've written down here pretty even first 15 minutes. It was like a basketball game. It was almost like bypassing the midfield at points. On 23 minutes, Kearney had a shot. Forster says, I think what a player they've got on their hands there, Rangers.
He's the best. He is the best player, yeah.
He was very, very good. 25 minutes, great cross in by Rangers, but came to nothing. That was the one that went right across our box. It was just a tap-in. That was another more bad defending from Tottenham. On 26 minutes, Porro gave the ball away, leading to another chance for Rangers. And I've just written down here, Josh, sloppy Spurs. It's becoming a habit, isn't it? There is no other word for it. It's just sloppy, isn't it?
No, absolutely, dead on. I just want to draw your attention actually to a couple of other stats, because you only get those were just like some of the key stats, the basic stats. A couple of things I want to draw your attention to. Rangers, 38 attacks to Tottenham's 24. The distance covered by Rangers was more significant than the distance covered by Spurs. So Rangers covered 114.1 kilometres to Spurs is 112.8. Rangers made 49 ball recoveries to Tottenham's 45. Tottenham's passing accuracy was 87%. So of 553 passes attempted, 480 were completed. So a lot of that's fine. But then when you look at the amount of times that Spurs gave the ball away, that's really, really crucial. And some of those stats, the reason why I wanted to mention those stats beyond what we discussed was just, again, about that desire, about that willingness to want to win, that little bit extra, and maybe part of that is down to the fact that it's a big occasion for Rangers. You know, I think any Scottish team, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ali, but I think any opportunity Celtic or Rangers would have to play a so-called big Premier League side is going to be, especially at home, is a cracking occasion for them. And you're going to raise your level for that a little bit. But
yeah, it's always known as the Battle of Britain, isn't it? So you're always going to get that.
For Spurs, because we should be looking forward to the game with just as much anticipation. So I was very, very worried when I read those stats, because actually we should be outrunning teams. We should be attacking more than this Rangers side at their current state. You know, we should be recovering the ball if we're making the mistakes. Yeah, I kind of agree with everything else that's been said. It's just kind of same old Spurs. It's the same problem we're talking about. Again, Ali, I agree. In terms of too many players that are not willing to get to that level. And I'm seeing some comments, actually. I think we should address this, because a lot of people seem to be talking about this this issue in the comments, which is about players' attitudes towards the results. Why aren't we seeing players coming out and, you know, sort of slamming the club and slamming everything and being seen to be visibly and publicly furious at what's going on? And I think in particular, we're looking at that from Son and from Maddison, two of the captain and vice captain. Obviously, Romero came out, made his comments, so I'll part Romero from that, because he did come out. If anyone saw Kulusevski's, did you guys see Kulusevski's?
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah. To me, that sounded like someone that didn't want to be there. He in no way looked like he was enjoying that interview. He was very blunt, very frank, very honest. And then the thing that struck me was his face when he walked off, just before he gave his shirt to that ginger kid. He looked furious. And Kulusevski, actually, if you ever want to look for a player that is genuinely pissed off at what's going on right now, Kulusevski is one of them. Romero is another one that seems to be much the same. I'm looking at our current leadership group, and I'm really concerned. I'm really, really concerned. And actually, I've been saying this for a while, and I got loads of pelters for saying months ago. If I said it last season, I don't think Son should be our captain.
Oh, careful, mate! I got a lot of trouble for that when I said it last.
No, but you get a lot of and I have no issues with him being a club captain, right? But on the pitch,
Too
We're not
nice.
seeing enough from him. No, exactly. And so for me, there you go. John Creamer in the comments has exactly what I'm thinking. Kulusevski. For me, the perfect captain. He leads by example with his performances and his work rate on the pitch. He conducts himself off the pitch like a captain. The way he does his interviews is like a captain. He's already captain for his country, for Sweden. I think that's someone we should be looking to. And I think that that's a difficult decision that Ange may or may not have to make at this football club. But I think that that would be a start. I looked at when it was 85 minutes in, there was another moment that Kulusevski did where the camera panned to him and you could very clearly, and you don't need to be a lip reader to see what he said. He said, "Come on, boys, 5 minutes to go, 5 minutes to go," doing this to his teammates. No other player was doing that.
Yeah.
Son wasn't doing that. Maddison wasn't.
No.
In fact, when we conceded to Chelsea or when we conceded that goal to Fulham, those were the exact same suspects that had their heads down and were moping around on the pitch. When Kulusevski's geeing people up. Romero, again, I think he's probably damaged by the fact that his English, by all accounts, isn't very good. But that's what I want to see. Maybe I'm old school in that regard, but I like a captain who rolls his sleeves up. And I'm not just saying this because you're on here, Ali, but when I look at a captain, the ultimate captain was Scott Brown for me at Celtic, right? Not particularly gifted footballer, bit of a shithouse, pretty dirty, knew his limitations, but my God, was he a leader. My God, did he G players up? Did he, grab his teammates by their shirt and get them going? And, all of that side of things. I remember growing up watching the Neil Lennon Celtic team, right? When Rangers and Celtic was one hell of a it's always a tussle, but back when it was one hell of a tussle. And that's what I look for in a leader. And I look for the things that I see in Kulusevski is what I think this team needs. We need people to be leading by example. And I think he's not someone that just leads by example in terms of his behavior, but also in terms of how he conducts himself on the pitch. And right now, I don't think anyone can dispute the fact that he's been our player of the season comfortably.
I think that you need more than one. If you look at our last European game, we've got Kasper Schmeichel in goal. We lost a goal and he pulled everybody in for a huddle and was just raging, and he just said, right, so they just calmed themselves down and you saw the leaders in there all have their say, and then they went out and we got the draw. So I think that I like your Kante position, if you want to call it that. I like my leaders to be there because they dictate the tempo of the game. People respect them. That's who needs to do it, and you don't have a player like that. I think that taking that away from Kulusevski, who's got his own job to do it in the wing, I don't. A lot of people over egg what a captain is, and you say about Scott Brown. Scott Brown went to the new camp with a 98% pass rate. How many of your players got even close to that tonight for a pass rate? So he might not have been the silkiest of players, but when he got the ball, he didn't lose it. James Forrest, he's been with us 20 years. He's another one. You give him the ball on the wing, he just doesn't lose the ball. And he doesn't give it to their players, he gives it to our players. And if that's back or forward, it doesn't make any difference to him. So, to me, you need players that can just do the basics like that. And you need a captain, and you need more than one captain in your team that's going to fight and dig when you've got shitty games like today. Yeah. When it's down like that, you need people to roll up their sleeves, and you don't have enough players that do that. And that comes against your Bournemouth, your Ipswich, whoever you're playing that you're not doing that against. It's nice and easy playing silky football through a press with Man City because they don't really have that kind of dig just now because Rodri's out. So it'd been a different game if Rodri had been playing.
We forget, and this is the same. We don't forget. We all know how much of a leader Harry Kane was on the pitch for us. Not in terms of just, beyond just his quality, but that's exactly what I mean in terms of someone that sets the standard.
I think he was more of a focal point. If you understand what I mean.
He was a focal point, but also
a great player.
He G'd players up. He was constantly, he was the one talking to the ref because obviously Lloris was captain, but he was the one doing a lot of that stuff and leading on the pitch, not just leading in terms of his behaviour, but with his performances as well. I mean, Kulusevski's covered more ground than any other player in the Premier League this season. That's because he's working harder than any other player. And it says it all, really. And I was thinking about this, and it's that same exact thing as well. You know, when we're saying, you know, teams that can't break down a low block, Liverpool have Mo Salah who can do it. City have Erling Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne who can do it. Arsenal have Saka and Odegaard and, you know, lots of players that can do it. Chelsea are finding Cole Palmer that can do it. And Nicholas Jackson's now stepping up and he can do it as well. Spurs don't have that player. Spurs don't have one player, let alone two or three. The only one that we do have that seems to be capable of doing that is actually Kulusevski. He's the one that's, you know, look at the goal today. It was his outside of the football, and then he followed it up, sprinted in, you know, could have won a penalty. Tottenham could have stopped, but no, he carried on and he you know, finished it really well. And that kind of sums it up. And I think people tend to be agreeing in the comments here. You know, a lot of people referring to a Scott Parker type, a Moussa Dembele type. You know, I'm looking at January and I'm thinking we need to bring in some experience. And people might not like that. And I think this is going to separate, you know, I hate this cliche. I really do, but I'm going to use it anyway. Separate the boys from the men, because it's going to be interesting to see what happens. If Spurs were to go in and bring in 2 or 3 players and say 2 of them are over the age of 30, real experienced players that have won stuff, maybe been captains places, I wonder what that would do and ruffle the feathers of the squad in terms of the leadership dynamic. But I'd love to personally see it, because I think that really would separate those who are on board and want to step up from those who aren't. Yeah, I think that's a must. We really need some experience in January.
I totally agree, Josh. We definitely need reinforcements in the January window, although in the past we haven't really bought any in, have we? We are 1 or 2 gems, but you know, I'm not expecting too much, sadly. 40th minute, Johnson doesn't go at his man again. I've written down here, and that for me, Johnson, he scored some good goals this season, but he's got the pace. I don't know why he doesn't run at his defender. Sometimes he check back and pass backwards. It's really frustrating. 41 minutes, Bentancur swings in a lovely cross, but nobody's there, and that for me is where Son kind of falls down, because he's not a centre forward. He hasn't got that instinct to get in. How many times have we said that? He wasn't in the place where that was a lovely cross. Nobody's there. 46 minutes, excellent save from Forster right at the end of the half, kept us from conceding right at the end of the half there. Gary, in my opinion, Rangers had the better of that first half. They probably deserved to be ahead, and they certainly had the better chances, didn't they? I mean, you can't really say anything else other than that, can you? No, they were a much better side. They only looked like the only team that would come out and score. I mean, for pretty much most of that game, you know, right up until substitutions, we didn't even look like we were going to even score, if I'm honest with you. You know, it didn't even look like we were going to get a goal. Do you know what I mean? But I do want to just lift the mood a little bit, because it is very down and depressing, and I do want to give a big shout out to Fraser Forster, because like me and like a lot of us, we wasn't sold with Fraser Forster. As soon as we lost Vicario, we were Forster, Gary. Forster. No, I won't say no. I'll call him Forster, because I don't think his surname should be pronounced Forster, because it just doesn't sound right. So he's Fraser Forster to me. But what I will say about him is wow, because for me, he wasn't far off the Timu situation. Because when we got Timu on loan, and then when we lost Vicario and Fraser Forster was coming in, I was thinking the same sort of thing. I wasn't very confident, and I thought this is going to be really bad. But look, I know playing out from the back isn't his strongest point and stuff, but what I will say about Fraser Forster is some of those saves he's been doing, particularly in this game and some of the others, and also commanding the box on corners and crosses. Dare I say it, I think I actually feel more relaxed and confident with... I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm going to say this. I said this at the end of the game today. I actually feel more calm and confident with Forster in goal than what I did with Vicario, you know? And I never thought those words would come out of my mouth. A bit like me saying Timu is a quality striker, which that never will come out of my mouth. That won't happen. No, it won't. And I really do feel, just to spit a positive on the game, because him for us,
was a massive positive because let's be honest about it. If it wasn't for him tonight, we would have lost that game. You know, there's no two ways about it. So I think we do have to really spend at least a few minutes individually on Forster because for me, I thought he was brilliant. And I think since he's come in, you know, you're talking a guy, how old is he? 37? You know, he's not had a lot of game time. And I think he's done really well. I don't think he was at fault really for any goal in the Chelsea game. You couldn't blame him. I know he had his dodgy moment against Bournemouth, but ultimately the goal, he wasn't to blame for the goal. And again tonight, I thought he was brilliant. I really, really did. I really thought he was brilliant. And for me, him and touching on Kulusevski and possibly Solanke are some of the real positives in this team at the moment because there isn't many, but he is one.
Absolutely. You touched on Timu there. He was replaced at half-time. And now, obviously, we know what Ange thinks of Timo Werner. Timo Werner. And look, he had a dreadful. I don't want to do down players too much. I think we've done a lot of that tonight, but he didn't have the best game at all, did he? So probably right that he came off, and our player of the season, Kulusevski, came on. 47th minute, Alli. Igman scored a great goal and fantastic ball over from Tavernier. Or Tavernier it is, isn't it? I keep wanting to say Tavernier.
You're right the first time. Tavernier his name is.
Oh, see, I've heard it pronounced both ways, but yeah, I mean, this goal, I mean, Porro lost it up the pitch and then didn't get back. He didn't bust a gut to get back. You know the quality of Tavernier. He's got the most assists, I believe, in the Scottish League, hasn't he? So talk us through this goal, and is this something that he does week in, week out for Rangers?
Yeah, he's pretty rapid, Tavernier, but the fact that he was getting up the pitch is down to your own press. Normally, we've got Maida, and by the time Maida's finished with him, he just doesn't want to. He doesn't venture forward against us. So we kind of nullify him because he is a threat, whether it be free kicks. He always takes the penalties, and he is good at getting the crosses in. He's a decent player. You know, he's played. You know, he gets a bit of stick from Rangers fans sometimes, but you know, he's not the best defender, which is, again, disappointing from your part that, you know, at times Rangers were able to sit with three at the back, you know, and their wingers, the right and left backs were able to get in about you. And that's something that should have been nullified, and Ange would have known that. So as part of his plan would have been that, I would have thought, is to keep them back there, because that stops them.
Sorry, Ali, just look at this, the space he's got, though, from...
Yeah.
I can't actually tell who's chasing him. I'll be Bentancur or Madison, but
I think it was Bentancur.
Yeah, and obviously couldn't catch him, but the space there and the defence, obviously because Porro's out of position, and then finally when he knocked it in, obviously, and it was a fantastic ball.
Yeah,
but
brilliant.
You know, it shouldn't have even got to that point, should it? Do you know what I mean?
No, it should have been stopped long before then. And look, he is good at that. And you give anyone that's got that kind of space and that time, they're going to punish you. You know, I mean, Rangers have been doing it in Europe for a while now. I just think that the problems aren't just your defenders. I don't think the defence did anything wrong there. There's not much they could have done. If you keep losing the ball in midfield and balls keep coming at you, then you're going to keep losing goals. So, yeah, he's a decent player, mate, but he should have been dealt with. And I just don't think he was. I don't think Tottenham were a big enough threat to keep him at the back. So the amount of times, especially in the last 20 minutes, I saw he was going more and more forward. After you guys scored your goal, I think he was. That's how he plays week in, week out. He's always on the front foot. Whereas when he plays us, we always nullify that because Maida is rapid and he doesn't get a break with him, and that's it. But Maida, even in your team, a lot of our players, you talk about these guys that you're talking about that can do it for other clubs. How many of them are going to do it for your club with the players you've got? You know, Kulusevski does it, and don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of the players you mentioned, like Odegaard. Who's he passing to? Because nobody's giving him positions for him to pass the ball to. You know, it's more than just one issue, I think. And I think there's loads of them in there that you mentioned, Saka and the likes. He's a good player, and I'm not saying he's not, but who's going to get him and put the ball through so he's getting these opportunities? Because that's where your problem lies. It's not just, it's not just the players you've got up front. It's, to me, like you say, with the midfield, there's not enough pace in there. There's not enough running. There's not enough positioning. The young lad, again, just embarrassed him. How many times did he get the ball and it looked like he had the whole pitch at his feet? He knows how to find space. That's what a good player does. And then you get Maddison getting the ball, coming short, getting the ball, and then running into trouble, going to the left every time with Son. It's like, change it up a bit, mate, and pass the ball quicker. So it was quite disappointing from that point of view, mate. I think it needs to, the players need to wake up and realise that they are all good players and they're probably all capable of it. You've mentioned the guys before that the first 10 games, they've not lost the ability to play. Maybe they've lost a bit of confidence or stuff. And maybe they just don't trust Ange's style because they're reading it in the paper every day and they're going home and reading it. But it works because it's worked elsewhere. It can work in the Premier League. You've got other teams there that play a similar style. Yeah, maybe not as gung-ho, but if his press works, you see the damage he can do. Yeah. And then it just comes down to the players being able to do that throughout a season. Now, we spoke about the size of your squad. He used to bring in guys that I didn't think had the ability to play for Celtic. But it's an easy position to play if they can just play football. We had two boys. There was Greg Taylor and Anthony Ralston, both Scottish lads. And a lot of fans didn't want them to stay, but both of them did well in his first season once because the positions he gave them and their ability on the ball was just, they could take the ball on the run, they could pass it, they could cross, they could do the basics in football that you would expect anyone at this level to do. And he got players to do that and improve all those players. It's hard to improve players that think they're already the finished article.
Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of goes back to like what you were saying about Ange. It's not necessarily the players that are household names, it's the players that fit the system and actually want to do the hard yards. We've certainly done some hard yards tonight because it's now 12:15. So we're going to get through the rest of the game fairly quickly here because we're going to come on in a minute to Kulusevski's goal, which I think was absolutely fantastic. But on 52 minutes, Kearney jinked through the defence and nearly got a shot off. Just like our defenders weren't there, to be honest with you. Lucky not to concede. 54 minutes, Bentancur run, Kulusevski cross and Johnson fires over. Should have probably done better. 60th minute, there was a triple change. Johnson, Bentancur and Bissouma off for Sarr, Solanke and Bergvall. We've covered this. We've said the subs pretty much changed the game there. Certainly Solanke and Bergvall. And obviously Kulusevski come on at half-time and really did turn our fortunes around. 64th minute, Maddison free kick over the bar really wound me up. It was obviously off the training ground, but it didn't work too well. It looked like he was stretching for that. And what I've written down here, Josh, it comes down to what we were discussing earlier. We have talked about it at length, but again, no leaders on the pitch. Son, Maddison, where were you? I know I don't want to talk about this too much, but do we need to buy in a leader, or is that something you can teach? Because for me, it's a natural thing. You've either got it in or you haven't. Have you?
You can't teach it. You either are or you aren't. It's who you are. It's in your DNA. It's who you are as a person. It's what you conduct yourself like in any situation. If you're going to be a leader, you're not just a leader on the football pitch. You live your whole life by example. You do everything you do in your life. The discipline, everything is done a certain way.
There's no Roy Keanes on that pitch, I'll tell you, mate.
No, but this is it. And good leaders are not necessarily always the best players either. I use Scott Brown as an example because I don't think he was a particularly gifted footballer. He had severe limitations, but he never tried to do the things that he couldn't do. Do you know who I actually think is quite a good leader? Is Ben Davies. Ben Davies is a player that knows his limitations, doesn't try and do things he can't.
I agree.
Do. And he kind of leads by example. Now, I don't think that's who we should be reverting to, given his age and what have you. But it's that kind of old school mentality. I've said it, and you know what? Someone said in the comments about wanting Kulusevski, being critical of Kulusevski. the reason why I think Kulusevski would be such a good captain for us is because of what I thought of him last season, actually. I was not convinced with him at all on the wing. I didn't think he was good enough. I thought he didn't suit Ange Ball. And then he got put in the position that he has come out, and he had previously come out publicly and said was his best position. And it's been completely transformative for him. He proved me wrong with his hard work, his performances, the whole thing, how he conducts himself. That's why I'm so sold on Kulusevski. And I think he's the natural leader. He's young, could be here for years to come. I think we do need to go out and buy leaders. We really do, because I don't think you can turn. I think the only thing is, you know, some of the young lads may turn out to be leaders, but we don't know yet because they're still young. They're still very, very young. They're still growing. They're still developing, quite literally growing in the case of some of them. But yeah, I mean, it's football is not like FIFA or, you know, those video games, but don't you just wish you could go on one of those FIFA career modes and sell half the squad and bring in a bunch of good players? But what I'm looking at is I'm looking at players that are leading by example at the minute in terms of the level of their performance. So I personally really like Brian Mbeumo at Brentford. I think he's leading by example on the pitch. I think Ilya Zabarny, the Ukrainian centre-back at Bournemouth, is another one I really like. I think he's leading by example. So you don't need to necessarily go out and get superstars to get leaders or people that just get their basics of their position right. But players that play, you know, don't try and do things they can't do, but do the things that they can do really, really effectively. You know, again, I go back to the example Alli mentioned about Scott Brown's, was it 98% pass success rate at the Nou Camp, right? That says all you need to know. It's someone that keeps the ball ticking. Now, actually, I thought Pierre-Emile Højbjerg might be that type of player. Turns out it wasn't to be. He didn't really suit the system. But, you know, it was moments like Marseille where I thought he was someone that we needed someone to take the game by the scruff of the neck and finish that crucial chance. And he did. And we ended up going to the knockouts of the Champions League. It's that type of presence on the pitch, even if it's not, you know, and Højbjerg, I don't want to get into a whole debate about Højbjerg because, you know, I just want someone that is going to give absolutely everything. And it feels like the thing that it always comes back to really is, I think as fans, the players, the whole thing, the institution of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, we like to think that we are so much bigger and better than we are. We've no more right than an Aston Villa or a Newcastle to be where we are, or a Brighton even to be where we are in the league right now. We really don't. You're only as good as you are right now. The past is totally irrelevant, really. And it feels like you've got too many players at Tottenham that feel comfortable. They feel like we're at a big six club. We're playing this incredible training ground, incredible stadium, you know, all the, you know, big money, all the fame, everything that goes with it. And there's not enough hunger and desire and players that want to actually take it upon themselves to say, actually, no, I'm here to prove a point. I'm here to better myself. And the ones who do that end up moving on to Real Madrid and Bayern Munich and the big clubs because nothing changes at our football club. That's why Harry Kane left. Harry Kane was everything we ever wanted and more. I'm sure, Alli, I'm sure you would have loved to have Harry Kane at Celtic, and you would have loved to have a player like that. And I suppose quantifiably it's slightly different with Celtic. But, you know, we had something so incredible, but time and time again, the players around him didn't want to match his ambition. As much as I don't think the club matched the ambition and the chairman didn't match the ambition, did his teammates match the ambition as well? I'm not sure many of them did. So
I think when you talk about leaders, Josh, you're talking about winners as well. You know, Harry Kane wanted to be a winner, so he moved on. You know, Eriksen was the same. You know, Modric was the same. You know, these guys want to move to clubs where they're going to win trophies. You know, and yet when it's like Real Madrid and that, you get players wanting to go that. Maybe not so much Bayern Munich because I don't think the league's that great, and I certainly don't think the the whole spec of playing for Bayern Munich's a big thing for English players. Whereas you mentioned Real Madrid, Barcelona, even the Milan teams, there's that kind of fantasy about these teams and their stadiums, that you want to go and experience. Now, to me, you've got, when you bring in players now that are going to be winners, I disagree so much with the 30-year-olds for that midfield role. I'm not saying you couldn't bring in maybe a defender, for instance, to be in there to steady the ship a bit, or somebody who's going to play, I don't know, that's got the legs about them still regularly. I think you need players that are there to win. That the team has to just move forward to a degree where it's Champions League football. It comes over seasons. Get back into the Champions League. People want to come to you then. You go and try and buy a player now for Tottenham, you're not getting some of these players if a Champions League team wants them. You know what I mean? You use Celtic as an example. We could go for players. They're just not coming to Scottish football.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Spurs. People are not going to come to you until they see a level of success. And it's the same with Man United now. How many of the top players have turned them down? Liverpool's not that dissimilar at the moment, although they've still got a great side and they'll probably win the league this year. Excuse me, they've missed out on quite a lot of players. And that all comes down to
Liverpool. You look at Liverpool, that's one thing that has been consistent, I think, about them is the amount of players that they bring in that want to win and seem like leaders. Alexis McAllister, a great example, right?
Yeah.
The way that he is not just, a top player, but he looks like a leader on the pitch. I see the same thing with Luis Diaz. But then even the players like Kelleher and Bradley, when he's filling in for Trent Alexander-Arnold and Alisson respectively, those guys, they look like leaders. They look like winners. And I think you're right. Maybe we don't need 30-year-olds necessarily. My point, I think in the short term, I'd like to see a little bit more experience in the squad anyway.
Yeah. But I think if you look at likes of Scott McTominay ripping up at Napoli, he'd have improved your team. 25 million is nothing. So I don't understand. Somebody in the background, it'll be Levy and the board are deciding who comes in. That's not Ange because they want a style, but they've must have changed the style 6 times in the last 5-10 years. And if you keep doing that, then you're going to end up with a group of players that don't play youth football all the way through the same way, and that's how all the top clubs do it. If you don't act like a top club, then you're never going to be one because it works for them
as well. Villa's a good example, and I know they've been up and down this season, but part of the reason I think why they had this huge push to from where they were to where they are now, aside from all the great work from Unai Emery, but look at players like John McGinn. I think it was like £2 million from Hibs, right?
John McGinn, 3 million.
He's a leader. I think he's a good footballer, very good footballer, but he's not the most technically incredible footballer.
He's a battler.
But that's it. He just that he will give everything. Tielemans is much the same, and that I think it's things like that. It's players like John McGinn that I would be looking at and saying that's the type of player, not necessarily him itself, but that type of player that we could do within our midfield that is going to do absolutely everything every game.
I saw in the comments here someone mentioned there's a young lad at Motherwell, Lennon Miller, and there's quite a lot of clubs interested in him. He's a good player. Celtic are going to probably try, Rangers will probably try, but I believe Brighton, I think it is, might be in for him. There's a couple of teams in for him, and he is a good player. And it's going to take years to bring in that type of player to then get them first team ready in the Premiership. But Archie Gray looks like he's almost ready. He could do a job for you, I think. He's got that energy. He's got the grace about him. He's got the ability. I think Ange is doing right by getting that to get the club to that level there. And he's trying to fix all the problems at once. And it's like an impossibility, because you can't win titles with just youth. You're right. They need that experienced heads that know the style, that can play the style, that can press properly, and it demands the ball. I don't see anyone demanding the ball at Spurs. I see them waiting for the ball to be passed, and I don't see anyone putting enough effort in to make space to make the job easy for the other players in their team. You know, you look at all the teams that play this style of football, they always seem to be in space. Now, that's basic football, and that's just awareness of your surroundings. So there's a lot that needs to change with some of the players they've got, or you're going to end up with another manager coming in, worrying more about his job, unlike Ange, and he's going to try and play a different style of football. And then you just won't be singing Robbie Williams songs anymore.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of work, though, Alli, for Ange to do still, I think, is what you're getting at.
I think so. I think he's probably going to need between 3 and 5 windows to get anywhere near what he wants the team to look like. And I know you guys are going to be impatient, but what's your options?
I'll wait. I mean, he's only had
I'm
quite happy to wait 3-4 years for him.
I hear people moaning about him, but I just think that, look, he's trying to fix decades worth of issues, you know, and he is the type of personality that he just won't take no for an answer. He'll get the people he wants rather than people being thrust on him that he knows won't fit into the system, you know. So I just think that he's got the personality to make those changes. I think you just need to stick with him. And then, you know, I do believe, and wholeheartedly, I know enough about football, I know that, you know, his style can work if he gets given the tools to do the job. And at the moment, he doesn't have the tools. It's as simple as that. And you talk about injuries. When you're asking players to run harder and faster than they've ever done, you're going to get injuries because a lot of them, they'll either break down or they won't. Now, in Scottish football, that's okay because you're only going to be spending £1 million to £3 million on a player. When you've got an £80 million player that's, you know, can't do 50, 60 games at that pace, then he was brought in wrong by the club in the first place if they want people that are capable of running. And surely that should be a prerequisite for any club, you know, to outrun the opposition, outfight them, you know. And every team's going to want to outfight you. So it's not just sometimes the fight. You've got the quality then, that Spurs have got more quality than other teams, you know, and they should be able to win it by that. As long as they match them on fight and spirit and, you know, all the rest of it, then it just comes down to the quality of the player. So you might get beat by a Man City or a Barcelona or a Real Madrid or a Liverpool on occasions. But then at least you know you're at that level and you're happy. You know, whereas when you're getting beat by teams that are just out fighting you and things like that, then that's the disappointing thing with a club. And when you said about the club sizes, I understand when you mention Aston Villa and Newcastle, but Brighton should never be anywhere near Tottenham Hotspur standard, you know, as a size of club. You know, Brighton have only managed to do it because they've got good management, they've bought well, they've got the money that they get for playing in England alone. It's no longer the size of the club that matters because you get more money from the TV than you do from turnstiles. So that's why you've got so many clubs that should never really be in that league for their size that they get to stay in it. You know, imagine if you put Celtic and Rangers into that league and the size of that would do to them. It's just scary, and they would battle for everything because the fans wouldn't have it any other way, because if you don't fight for the jersey, then you just don't play for the old firm.
Yeah. Well, somebody who certainly is battling and fighting at the moment is Dejan Kulusevski, and he got his goal on 75 minutes, Gary. The biggest bit of quality in the game, to be honest. Talk us through this goal.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was just, it was what we were talking about. We should have been doing all game, and you know the substitutions come in. And just the run, the pass. I mean, I think it probably would have been a penalty anyway, but a lovely move to dummy the ball, let it go through like that, and took it brilliantly. It was just, it's what, you know, we used to see Tottenham play like that because we know they can play like that, but there was very, very little of that tonight. But I did think at that point when we got that goal, I did genuinely think we'd probably go on and win it, you know. Like I said to you earlier, Craig, long before the game kicked off, we'll go behind. And then we'll get back into the game and we'll nick a winner. And I was quite confident we would do that. As it happened, we didn't. But great build-up, great play. And this is what I love, but also what frustrates me about Tottenham, because they're capable of scoring goals like that. It was a great, you know, worked goal. It was brilliant, perfect. Why can't we see more of it? Just so frustrating. It really is. But great goal. And at that point, I thought we'd go on and win it. You know, it wasn't meant to be. I mean, partly thankfully for Forster, because we'd have lost it. But it was a great goal. You know, that was one of only a few positives in the game, if I'm honest It was a great move. It was.
Well, another positive for me, and you hinted at it there with Fraser Forster making an unbelievable save from Dessers at the end there. That kind of, well, that would have sealed the deal. I mean, it was just such a good save, wasn't it?
It was a great save. You know, I think sometimes goalkeepers don't really get the reward they deserve. I think a lot of time, you know, you had Alli McCoy criticising the player rather than giving, you know, the thumbs up to Forster. And I think that was more a great save from Forster than, you know, a bad miss from the player, because I thought he connected the ball well. I thought it was good. And it was just an instinctive save. I know he hasn't got it with his hands, but, you know, he's made himself big, which at 6'7", he can do that. And that's why I go back to, I look at that situation. I know people will compare goalkeepers, but this is probably an opportunity where you can compare Vicario and Forster. And I think probably Vicario doesn't save that. So you've got to give him his due, you know. And Alli McCoy was like, oh, you know, the player should be burying it. I don't think he should be burying it. I think that was an amazing, if not world-class save. And it let us go away with a point, because, you know, we're not coming back from that, mate, if that goes in. You know, that's it, isn't it? So
that's a classic Forster save, that. He makes himself big. Yeah. He does everything he can, and it rattles the striker. So he basically just hit that ball. And when you look at it, it's almost like he's hit it right at the keeper. And it's almost like Forster gets the attention of the player, so the ball gets attracted towards him, you know. And whereas a top-class striker would have put that low. I mean, that height and everything that he put it, that's why he was able to save it, and that's what Forster does all the time, and he rattles strikers. So I think with the goal...
Forster 6'7", is he?
You'd hate to be 1v1 against Forster, wouldn't you?
Oh, you've seen the guy's hands, man.
The size of it. I mean,
his arms and his hands
and
are
that's
huge.
why do you think Vicario saves that? I don't think he does, you know. I really don't. Because he made himself so big there.
I think Fraser Forster is one of those players that you have to have in the club, even if, you know, longer term, well, he's getting on anyway. But if he continues to keep playing for the next few years, you'd still want him involved. Even as a third choice keeper, you'd still want him involved at the club, because
he surprised me since he's come in, though. I will say that. So for me,
there were some positives tonight. I thought he was a positive. Yeah. I actually thought, as much as I thought Gray was stinking it up for the first 20 minutes, I thought
he wasn't too bad, Gray.
He ended up doing quite well in the end. Yeah. Radu, I thought, was pretty good tonight.
Yeah, Bergvall.
But there were some positives tonight. But and that's the one thing that is good. We didn't lose the game.
We didn't lose it.
Positives, and certainly those players that were positive.
And Forster, you know, at the end of the day, Forster kept us in it, because, you know, if it weren't for Forster, we'd be on this tonight, and it would be a defeat. So
if you look at the other positive as well, the two teams that are directly above you, they play each other next.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you get your next win, then you're up into the top 8.
Yeah,
and that's what we
need another win. You know, I think we'll get a win and probably a draw. I think it will be. You know, we've got, what's it called, on the 30th, haven't we? At home, we'll win that.
Elfsborg,
our away one, we'll get a draw.
Yeah, we got Hoffenheim next, of course.
Well, Hoffenheim are in stinking form, aren't they?
They are, and if we don't beat them, God. Alli, just coming on to you. So for me, Forster was our man of the match. If you had to pick one, Bergvall close second for the second half performance. I thought he was very good, but Forster definitely man of the match for me. Spurs better in the second half, Alli, weren't we? But pretty torrid first half. I think we can.
The substitutes made all the difference. It put some impotence and pace into the game. You look at the pace for the movement of the ball for that goal. That's why you got the goal, because the movement, the pace of the ball, one-touch football, that's what made the goal. There wasn't enough of that. And the more the players actually do that, the more they'll make the game easy for themselves. Because it opened up the space against Rangers. And that was the first time that they actually opened them up big time tonight. And I thought they would have done that more because of how they normally play. But, you know, look, Rangers did a good job on them. They were rapid about it, but there was loads of times that the ball was just given away when they were 10 yards away from you. That was just crazy football. And I just thought, as I say, I don't think I've seen a Celtic team do that in one game all season. That amount of mystery passes. The fans would be going mental at that.
we've done it for a lot this season, but let's hope we can get back on track against Southampton, which of course is our next game. Before we come on to that, let me just remind you, we are nominated again, and we're a finalist in the Sports Podcast Awards in the category Best Team Podcast. If you would like to vote for us, that would be lovely. That would be fantastic. We do need your help again just to vote for us. The link's at the top of this chat and in the description on this video and all over Chris's socials. So it will take you about a minute to vote. If you could do that, that would be lovely. So, Josh, very quickly on to Southampton. Southampton are, of course, bottom of the Premiership and Spurs are in 11th. Although we're away, it's getting towards a must-win game, this, isn't it, on Sunday?
It is a must-win. There's no other way of putting it. It really is just a must-win. Nothing other than 3 points is going to be acceptable. It's going to be a nice moment as well, because we all know what happened the last time we went to St Mary's. We were 3-1 up, ended up drawing the game 3-3. Conte had his infamous rant and sent us into this situation, which Ange Postecoglou became Spurs manager in the end, after a torrid spell with Stellini and Mason. So it's going to be good to, and more than anything, the league position, the form that we've been in, how poor Southampton look. And Southampton have tried to play expansive attacking football all season, and they've been caught out every game near enough for doing just that. I think Wolves was the only team they beat at home. So, yeah, must-win game. And also, given what happened last time there, no James Ward-Prowse, bloody penalties and golf celebration that he seemed to do against us every time we played them. So, terrible kickoff time. I don't know what's going on with the scheduling. Not a TV game either, I don't think. But Bournemouth at 8:15 on a Thursday, Southampton on a Sunday at 7 p.m. honking. But I know that the usual lot that go everywhere will be there.
I'll be there.
Yeah, we got to go and win. I mean, I'd love a ticket, but it's going to be impossible to go.
I'll keep my ears to the ground, mate.
Well,
Josh, what's your give me a score prediction for Sunday, Josh?
I think it's going to be ugly, but I think Spurs will scrape a win. I think Spurs will win 2-1. But actually, I don't care if we concede. I'm not bothered how it happens. We just have to win. Just have to win.
Just have to win, absolutely. Gary, Spurs, no wins in 5 now. How do you see this going Sunday? And give me a score prediction.
Well, surprisingly, considering we wasn't good at Bournemouth, I mean, what an awful journey there and back that was. That was a tough one to take. We was awful against them. And considering we wasn't great today, I'm actually going to go for a very convincing positive win on Sunday. Now, I might just be saying that because I've got to do the journey down there and back, but I have a good feeling about it. And I don't normally go this high, but I think we're going to win that 4-1 on Sunday. And I really think it's going to be, and I know what will happen. We'll win that 4-1. And then a lot of Spurs fans will be like, oh, well, it's only Southampton and, this, that, and the other. We will concede because we're Tottenham. But I do think we're going to win that 4-1. And it'll be a good Sunday evening for us.
Wow, I'll take that. I'll take that, Gary. 6-5. That would be an entertaining game, Ed.
That would be Spurs, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
that would be totally Tottenham. 4-0, Ian Bell. Alli, I know you're probably going to be celebrating a Celtic winning the cup and won't care about our game Sunday. But how do you see this game going Sunday? Give us a score prediction.
I think Celtic will beat Rangers 3-1, and I think Spurs are going to win 3-1 as well.
3-1.
I don't think that Southampton are all that. I think they try too much to play expansive. Again, a bit like Ange, where he doesn't change. I don't think they do much either. And I just think that, I think these are due a win. I think not playing European football is going to help for the next period, although you've got the Christmas period coming up. Yeah, I think, look, it's hard to go to Ibrox. I don't think Southampton's as hard to go to.
No.
And as Chris says here, a huge week next week, and that does start. It would be lovely to get it off to a good start against Southampton on Sunday, leading into that big quarter final. Because if we don't do something in that, then it's going to be a tough week, and then of course we've got Liverpool after that. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, though.
No.
Guys, it's what is the time? It's 1:45 in the morning. Thank you so much for sticking with it. I know we've gone on a bit longer than I said we would, and thanks to well over 1,000 people still watching us at this time of night. You're all crazy, but we love you. Gary, what I'll say is, give us a shout while we're doing the final goodbyes. Where are you watching us from? Stick it in the comments quickly and I'll put them on the screen. Gary, thanks very much for coming back and joining us. Always a pleasure, my friend, my good friend, Gary Maloney. What you've been up to, and where can people find you if they want to give you a follow?
No, I love it, Craig. And, I mean, don't tell Chris, but I think you're a better host than what Chris is, I mean, I'm sure
I don't know about that.
He won't hear this, so it doesn't really matter. But
he's watching. He's watching, Gary. He's watching.
Yeah, I know he is. Yeah, he's done the same score prediction as me 4-1. Do you know what? Me and Chris always seem to do the same score predictions. They never come true though. But
he's probably watching in bed in the hotel. He don't want to jump on, does he?
He is. Yeah, with a kebab. I'll bet you.
Yeah, he's got kebab all down in.
Yeah. No,
iron brew, covered in iron brew.
Always a pleasure to be on, mate. Listen, look, we spoke about it earlier. For me, it's a big part of being a Tottenham fan, this podcast now. I've supported Spurs since a kid, home and away. I try and go to as many games as I can. If not, now the kids support them. My wife has to suffer it. And now the next thing, is meeting all you guys on the podcast, and we meet up on games and stuff. And it is therapy, and it is part of who we are. And, it's never going to be easy. It's never going to run smooth. We are Tottenham Hotspur fans. But yeah, listen, look, give us a follow. I'm normally on Instagram quite a lot. So it's Gary Maloney 13 and Facebook Gary Maloney. I'm on there, popping up.
I don't want to see his Instagram, guys.
Yeah, and then Craig, Joshua obviously knows my other job, and then you'll see me somewhere on stage the weekend. So, and that's me. So yeah, but hopefully on Sunday I'll be coming back from Southampton with a 4-1 win, and I can message you again, Craig, and say, "See, I told you I'd get that one right again."
Well, I'm going to go, before we just come to Alli, I'm going to go for a 3-0 Spurs win. I'm going to go for a clean sheet. I'm going to go for a clean sheet. Yeah.
Well, he did play good tonight, Forster, so it's possible.
Yeah, you had the job off Chris there until you said that.
Yeah.
Alli, thanks so much for coming back. I know we were hoping for a Tottenham win tonight, but always a pleasure to have you on, my friend. I know you're not on social media, are you? But
not really.
Where can so people can't really find you. So, but if you want to say a quick goodbye to everybody, because you've got a lot of love.
No, it's been great being on the show again, guys. It's always interesting watching the Spurs. So, look, it'll come good. I'm still got the faith, still got Lions love.
Good man.
Lovely. Thanks, Alli. And Josh, finally, thanks for coming back on, mate. And thanks for popping on early with Barnaby. If nobody's actually watched the watch-alongs with Barnaby, he does absolute cracking job. He's so good. He's much more professional than I am. And if you do want to come on, then drop Chris an email. His email address is all over the social media. If you want to come on and chat to Barnaby, or even come on the channel, just get in touch with Chris and we can get you on. Josh, thanks for coming back on. Where can people find you?
At Josh Hughes TV on X, Twitter. Yeah, if you want to hear me, I didn't really talk much about Daniel Levy tonight. I usually do. So if you want my Daniel Levy bashing, then watch the watch along with Barnaby.
Or jump on X.
And I went into it about the stadium deal and all of that. So
yeah, I was watching.
That's where that's at. But can I just say, always a pleasure to be on. I know I come on quite regularly, but none of this is possible without all of you lot watching around the world. The reason why the pod has been nominated for so many things and, is up for this sports podcast, best team podcast award is down to you guys watching from all around the world, making us number one listened to in so many countries. It always blows my mind every time I come on the stream, which is quite a lot, seeing every time there's new faces, new countries, new places where people are watching from at all times. We're all in this together at the end of the day. It's therapy for us post-match, but hopefully it is for you guys as well. I know we can sometimes come across quite negative after results like this, but, we just keep going, we keep believing, and one day, it is the hope that always kills us as Spurs fans. But thing is, we
Certainly
still
is.
have that hope that tomorrow will be a better day. So let's go and win against Southampton and win against Man United and get our season back on track. But thanks for everyone in the comments listening, and thanks for having me on the pod once again.
No worries, mate. And Ali, Chris was up at Celtic today. He's got a video on the channel. He did a tour of Celtic Park. So, and apparently all the Celtic staff members said to him, give Ange time. I think that's a good place to leave it. We've got to give Ange time. I'm going to give you all time now to get a decent night's sleep and dream of better times for Tottenham. Thanks everyone for listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Come on, you Spurs.